Hey everyone, it's Kara and welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to give you guys my top 6 tips for newlyweds. So if you didn't know, my husband and I got married when we were 19 and 20 years old, and that was only 6 months ago. These are just some of the things that I have found to be really helpful over the last 6 months of marriage. So the first thing that I would recommend is to get on the same page with your budget. This is a really important conversation to have while you're engaged, and definitely an ongoing conversation to have once you're married. Getting on the same page with your budget with your spouse is super important because when you guys can enter your marriage being on the same page with your money, that will end up blessing the rest of your future. One of my biggest tips is to start saving money right away, because when you're saving little bits of money from the get-go, it will be that much easier to continue that practice instead of deciding down the road at a later time that we're going to start saving now. One other tip I have as far as money is to also start giving right away. It's going to be easier to start giving right now and to make that something that you hold each other accountable to, instead of deciding down the road to start giving to a charity or to your local church. Both saving and giving require a lot of discipline, but as you already make that a practice, it gets easier over time, and it also becomes easier to save and to give larger amounts of money as your income continues to grow throughout your lifetime. So if that is something that you can start doing right away, maybe when you aren't living on as much money as you might be in the future, it just begins those practices, even with a little bit of money, that will end up paying off in the future. My second piece of advice is to get into a spiritual practice rhythm with your spouse. So all growing up and throughout high school and my first year of college, I read my Bible and prayed every single morning first thing when I woke up. But I noticed that when I got married, I wasn't doing that anymore. And I felt a lot of shame and guilt because of that. And I remember talking to one of my professors about this, and she told me that when a major life change happens, because I moved, I got married, my life looks vastly different than what it did when I was living with my parents or when I was living in a dorm at school. She said that this is an opportunity for me and my husband to create new spiritual rhythms. And so some of those for us is that we read our Bible together during breakfast every morning, and we pray every evening before we go to bed. And then we also have been diligent to go to church more regularly on Sundays. And just making those little steps, it has taken a lot of discipline and patience with ourselves, and we are not perfect at it, but it has also created habits where now it feels weird not to pray before bed, and it feels weird not to go to church on Sundays, and we see improvement and progress in that area. It's also a great way to bond with your spouse when you are growing in your faith together. It's a great time that you have set aside that you know you're going to connect with them. We don't go to bed without feeling like we got some time together because we prayed together and we prayed about what's been on our hearts. Likewise, in the morning, it's not like we're just running out the door and we don't even get to say hi to each other, because we take time to make coffee, sit down, and read the Bible together and talk about what stood out to us. So it's a great bonding experience with your spouse as well. My third piece of advice is to check in with your spouse every single day, and then if you can, have a bigger check-in every week or every month or whatever you decide is best. So what that looks like for us is we check in with each other every day, asking how the other person's day went, asking if there was anything that upset them, if there were any exciting things that happened. We always like to ask if anything interesting or funny happened, and it's a great chance to connect and to hear about what's going through your spouse's mind and what's been put on their hearts recently. A bigger check-in can look like, is there anything that I've done recently that has upset you or that you feel hurt by? Do you feel like there's anything that we need to work on? What can I do for you this week? Asking those kind of questions, checking in on a deeper level. My fourth piece of advice is to seek out and find joy in looking for ways to serve one another. Viewing serving each other as a blessing and as an opportunity is such a great approach to marriage. Something that I have found to be really joyful for me is to make Dave breakfast and lunch and coffee every single morning, because I'm a morning person and Dave is not, and Dave has to get up and get ready for work, and so I try to make his mornings as effortless as I can for him. And I love waking up and immediately getting busy with something. So I love to pack his lunch, I love to make his breakfast and his coffee, and then make myself breakfast and coffee and all the things. So I found a lot of joy in that, and there have been times where I have felt kind of bitter at times, I guess, because I've felt like I'm serving him and I don't feel like he's reciprocating. But that's when I remember that he's at work all day earning money for us. We live only on his income. It's actually a blessing for me to be able to serve him in this way. And I also try to remember that if he wasn't here anymore, I would wish that I could serve him in that way, and I would do anything to be able to do that again. So viewing it as something that is a privilege is a really great approach, and it's a great heart check for yourself too. My fifth piece of advice is to make a list of your values together, and this is another great thing to do while you are engaged. But make a list of the things that are super important to you. You can even make them in order, and then make sure that there's time and room for those things. For example, I'm really into running. I love running, so that's something that we really make sure that I have time for. And Dave really loves working on his trucks and his dirt bikes, and he loves fixing engines and making things better and making them run smoother. And so there are times when Dave will spend an entire day working over the weekend on his trucks, or go up into the mountains and go dirt bike riding. And it can be easy as someone who loves your spouse to wish that they were there with you all day, especially on the weekends when they only get a few days each week to be home and you really want to spend that time with them. But that's when it's important to remember that this is something that gives them life, and that this is actually one of your values as a couple. And those are more like hobby values, time values, how you're going to spend your time. But also other things that are very important is, you know, your faith, your finances, how you treat other people. Some of those values are also important too. But values are just a great way to make sure that the things that matter to you line up with the way that you're living, and also as a mission together. Like, I don't love dirt bikes that much, but because my husband does, that's something that is one of my values. I want to make sure that he has time and space to do the things that he loves. And in the same way, he hates running, but he wants to make sure that I have the time and the space, the resources I need, the shoes that I need to be able to go out on runs. So it's another bonding experience and a great way to get on the same page as your spouse. My last piece of advice for young newlyweds is to create time together. It can be so hard to create time for each other when you are super busy, when a lot is going on, all of the different things, right? But it's so important, and that is really what grows your marriage. This past semester has been the hardest semester of my college so far. It was super busy, I was really stressed, and I had so much homework all the time. But something that I tried to do is think of the time that Dave was at work as the time for me to do my homework. And then when he came home, I tried to really set aside my homework and focus on him. And there were definitely a lot of times when I had to finish up that last assignment that was due that night, or turn something in, or study for a test the next day. But for the most part, it was a great mental break for me and a great way to grow and invest in our marriage by setting aside those things and saying that, Dave, you are more important to me than my homework, and I am going to be diligent to do my homework when you're not here and when we can't hang out, so that when you do come home, I'm ready for you. And that was a really great thing that grew our marriage, and it did take a lot of sacrifice because there were times when I was really stressed about school, but I had to choose not to focus on that and instead to focus on my husband. Creating time for each other is another thing that will always look different as your seasons of life are changing, and kind of like the spiritual practices, there are going to be times when your rhythms will look different. You know, it's going to look different once we have kids, it's going to look different once I have a full-time job, it's going to look different if Dave ever gets a different job. Whatever the situation and the circumstances are that we are in, creating time together will look different, but it's still something that's really important, and it's something that we want to prioritize for the rest of our marriage. So those are all of the tips that I have for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please remember to give this video a thumbs up and to subscribe down below, and comment how you like to invest and grow your marriage. See you guys in the next video. Bye.